Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see already many joining us. Well, I had my eyes on the DALI project and the TISL for a while while we were working on this MOOC, because this MOOC is about teacher data literacy and teacher inquiry. So I'm very happy to have Barbara Wasson and Cecilie Hansen to present us about their work. They're both from the University of Bergen, and they will talk about DALI, TISL, and maybe some other activities they do around. I will keep it short so that we make the most of the time we have, and perhaps if participants have questions, you can use the chat or the Q&A function, and we'll keep an eye on that towards the end to see if we can address some questions. Without keeping any longer, Barbara and Cecilia, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Barbara Wasson, and I'm a professor at the University of Bergen in the Center for the Science of Learning and Technology. And I have with me my colleague Cecilia, who I've worked with probably for over 20 years, I guess we figured. And although currently she's in the Department of Education doing her PhD. We're going to talk today about data literacy and use for teachers. And first, I wanted to tell you a little bit. We're from the Center for the Science of Learning and Technology, which is a national center for learning analytics and AI in education. And it's funded by the Ministry of Education and the University of Bergen since 2016. And at SLATE, we investigate the technological, pedagogical, interpretive, cultural, ethical, and legal aspects of learning analytics and artificial intelligence in education, and we promote the responsible use of technology in education. And you can visit us at slate.uib.no. Today, we're going to talk about 3 different projects that we've been involved with over the years. The first one is the Erasmus Plus project DALI. The second one is a project called Datareisen, and the third one is to talk a little bit about the TISL method. To start with DALI, as I mentioned, it was an Erasmus Plus project that ran from 2021 to 2023. And the main goal of DALI was to empower adults for responsible citizenship, civic engagement in terms of data by acquiring and developing key competences related to data literacy. The project had 5 partners in addition to us in Norway, who were the coordinators. We had Universitat de Murcia and Universitat de les Îles Balears in Spain, and then we had FAU in Germany and Coventry in the UK. DALI addressed the basic training of data literacy for adult learners in non-formal contexts through the co-creation, piloting, and evaluation of pedagogical strategies, and the provision of a toolkit of games and playful learning resources. So we basically used a gaming pedagogy. So they're making games, and as you'll see, some analog and some digital. And this is the way that we decided to develop these resources. The project was focused on adults. So we have the European definition of young adults being those 18 to 29, adults from 30 to 64, and seniors 65 plus. So everything we did was aimed at these 3 different groups, or at 2 of them, sort of intergenerational groups, etc. In DALI, we had 5 deliverables: the conceptual DALI framework, the learning approach, which was networked and playful, the DALI playful learning toolkit, the framework for implementation, and some policy recommendations and guidelines. But today I'll only tell you about 3 of them briefly. The first is the DALI data literacy framework. And here we carried out a systematic literature review. We did a Delphi study with expert, and we defined personas from the different stakeholders. So we talked to the stakeholders, and we generated these different kinds of personas that helped us define who the games should be for. The DALI data literacy framework is available on our website, and it's available in 4 languages: English, Spanish, German, and Norwegian. And to go a little bit deeper into this, our definition of data literacy is data literacy is about the competences people need to engage with and use data encountered in everyday life. It implies finding ways to make data-informed decisions, both in everyday life and in various contexts, according to personal or collective goals. Data literacy also includes understanding what data is and having awareness and attitude towards non-neutrality, the bias aspects of data. It implies having the skills to collect, select, store, preserve, and manage data, to analyze, evaluate, interpret, critique, apply, use, and work with data, and also to represent, visualize, and communicate stories from data. It also encompasses having the competence to ask and answer questions from data sets through an inquiry process. Furthermore, data literacy means having the knowledge to critically make judgments and interrogate the claims accompanying data, including ethical and legal aspects that affect one's and others' people's rights. It also includes the ability to use data as part of a design process to solve problems and to take decisions. And this is captured in our framework, which includes the 4 categories: understanding data, acting on data, engaging through data, and ethics and privacy. And each of these has a undercategories. So when you go into the framework, you can go in and see different aspects related to these categories of data literacy. So for example, on understanding data, we have knowledge, awareness, and critical thinking. So for an example of critical thinking, it's the relationship between humans and data, the use of automated processes versus human actions, who is making decisions, the human or the algorithm, how data tools work, data being used for targeted advertisements, the misrepresentation of data, how data is monetized, for which purposes is it being collected. Those are things that you can think about if you're going to make a course or some materials around understanding data and critical thinking. The same for acting on data. For example, collecting data, how to configure privacy settings, revoke access, request to your data is being erased. Use collected data to change your own behavior, for example, in a health app. Make informed decisions when interacting with data collecting actors, for example, mobile apps, internet portals, and employers. So how do you say yes or no to cookies, for example, could be something there. And then engaging through data, this is where you are being a data activist or you're using data to make decisions. You're advocating your own policy and regulation, like the regulations around data, you actively involved in that. So as an activist, you could use data as a basis for activism. You can put your data rights into practice, or you can self-regulate your own data footprint. So you can learn things about these aspects of it. And wrapped around that, you have the ethics. In DALI Playful Toolkits, so what we did after we had the framework is that we made these different games that address different aspects of the framework. And we have a toolkit that's available online. So here's the toolkit. It's toolkit.dalicitizens.eu. And you can come in here and get lots of information about the project. You can get the framework I just talked about. You can get different publications and resources that we've shared with you. And most importantly, you can get access to our games. So we've made 17 different games that are aimed at different age groups or cross age groups that are aimed at different aspects of the framework. And 5 of them are digital. The rest of them are actually physical games. So here are the ones that are, and you can search for them and go through them. You can pick what you want it to talk about. If you want the games for understanding data, or if you want games about acting on data or engaging through data, you can select. You can choose which type of game, if you want digital or card game or board game, etc. So you can filter through the different games that we have. So I'm going to show you 3 or 4 of the games that we have. So we have games of phones, And this is a very popular game that's used quite a bit still. And in this game, it's a card game, and it's about sharing and communicating data sets that already exist under ethical conditions. What you do is everybody sits in a circle and you give out the cards and you ask people to pick a card. There's one person who's the judge each round, and that person reads the card, and they have to browse the web quickly to find the result that best fits the description on the card. So it might be your favorite flower, and people go off and search on their phones for websites that show their flower, for instance, and then they share it in their group that they're playing with, and then somebody decides which is the best answer for that particular question. And it gets much more complicated, of course. And this one has been developed further, and I realized I forgot to put in a picture of how we've developed this for all schools, high schools in Norway. This is part of a game set that they have gotten. And then another one is the Delicious the Week. And here what you're working on and thinking about is creating, editing, and storing data in simple formats, for example, as a text. And the main goal is to achieve your ideal week by efficiently organizing your schedule and engaging activities related to energy, rest, exercise, and love. And the person who reaches their ideal week first is the winner. So it's a game that talks about formats of data that you can have. DALI Life is actually a real board game with movable pieces, and it's about being aware and knowing about the existence of data. And it's an educational game mixing event and action cards to race to the finish line. So you start down here on the start and you go around the board to the finish. And the winner of the game is the first person to reach the finish. So there's a variety, that's just to show a variety of the different kinds of games we have. All these games are available in print and play. So you as a teacher can go into our website and you can download and you get all the materials to print. For instance, you would get directions about how to play the game, you would get the scorecards that you would print, and you would get the different cards that you use to play it. And so this has been done in all the languages, and you can just download and use these games. And we have lots of people downloading them. And as mentioned, you can actually get it in the different languages. The framework for implementation, this provides the people who want to use our games with different ideas about how you can use them. And so it goes through and gives you, you can go to this page and get different facilitator guides and get links to the games as well. But here you get a handbook that tells you about the game and the number of players you need, what the goal of the game is, the page in the manual where you can find the different directions about playing the game. So this is basically about the directions for the games and tells you if it's a card game or a board game, if it's digital or not. So you can get a lot of information about these particular games. And there's a facilitator's guide as well that tells a little bit more about the ideas behind it, relates the games to the framework that we developed. So we have used these games with teachers in workplaces, in university courses, in libraries, and in fact in Norway they like it in prisons. And that one surprised us, but they said that they can use analog games with people who are not allowed on the internet, and they can learn about data literacy and aspects around it that they normally wouldn't be able to have aspects to. We've actually written a paper on using analog games to have access to knowledge about being digital. Here's in Spain, our colleague using this in a teacher workshop. She's run many of these. We've used them in Norway as well with workshops. And here on the left is in a course that we have had where we had a day where we played the DALI games. Here they're playing something called the iceberg game. On the right, we had a game stay at the library where people could come and play the games. So this is a project that has ended up being really having a lot of very good outputs, and they're still being used, and we get lots of questions about using these materials still. And as I said, you can get them for free on the web. So here I can just leave this for a second if you want to take a picture of the code. So first one, the first QR code is for the project itself, and the second one is for the toolkit. But if you come into the project, you also can get the toolkit directly. Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to move on to how we have also built another resource based on how to have awareness about understanding data and about awareness. And this is called Datareisen in Norwegian, or the Data Journey course. And this course is developed through a project that we had funded by Competence Norway, which is part of the Directorate for Higher Education. And we had many people involved. So we had my academic team here at Bergen. We had worked with Digital Norway, which is a conglomerate of, it's an NGO, but it's an organization owned by many companies in Norway about helping make digital resources, helping them to become more digital. For example, right now, very much focus on AI, etc. And then we worked with some text writers in a company called NewsLab. And then the course, which you can go on and see, and you'll see in a moment more about it, it was developed by a company called Feed in Oslo. And this is the welcome to the course. It's datareisen.no, and it's available in both English and Norwegian. So I've brought some English slides with here. So it's an online course available for anybody. So any of you can go into this. And if you know about the Finnish University of Helsinki called Elements of AI, they have an online course, which is quite well known. This is inspired by them. So it's open to anybody. Even my grandmother could take the course and learn something. We've also had people that are computer scientists take the course, and they also tell us they learned something. So it's organized in 5 chapters. And the first chapter, you go in and you click on the chapter, why is data worth its gold, and why is it worth protecting? And it has different sections in each chapter. And if we look at the overall structure of the course, as I said, we have the 5 sections or chapters. So why is data worth its weight in gold? Technology and beyond. How do we get a hold of data? Making data useful, and putting data to use. So those chapters, each with sub-chapters. The other thing is that this material is actually used in some courses at the University of Bergen where you can get credits. So we have 6 weeks courses, which I'll tell a little bit more about in a moment, that use the first 3 chapters, and we have another course that uses the last 2 chapters. And those are available in a moment. I'll tell you who they're available to. But if you take the online course, the Datareisen, you can get a certificate that you finished it at the end. So here you see an example of what it looks like in one chapter. So here's one section in a chapter. Why should I care about data? So you'll have a text, and then you see the pink are usually examples of some sort that you can click on and get more information about it. So you basically read the course. Here you signal that you finished reading. And if you do that while you take the course, this little blob at the bottom is collecting your data, how you interact with this course, and it will grow with your interaction with it. And at the end of the course, if you take all 5 chapters, you can get a certificate of finishing the course, and this blob, your individual blob, will be on your course certificate. And in each chapter, there's quizzes. So this is all about awareness and understanding on the very low level about what data is, how we should collect it, about the fact that you have rights about data, about how data can be your voice, how data can be a sensor in a tunnel, in a parking lot, different kinds of data. So it's really fundamental, which I believe you need to know in order to understand AI and what algorithms do and how they use data. So this is for everybody. So I recommend you can go in. So in these courses that we have in Bergen, we have a set of digital courses at the university that are non-credit courses for your program of study, but they are extra credits you can take. And the students seem to think that they're very good to give them some courses that they need when they go into working life. So they see it as sort of training for the future. So we have this one on fantastic data, which is mine. And then we have some AI, we have a GDPR course, we have a cybersecurity course, a course, very intro programming, data and democracy. We also teach in that course, etc. So this is something the university has decided to do in a digital competence package. So we have a set of courses. So the first one, Digi 110 Fantastic Data, is available for UIB campus and staff. So what we found was that the staff was registering as students to be able to take the course the first semester we have it. So this has about 250 to 300 students and staff every semester, and we've had it now for 6 semesters. We then got money at the university to change this set of digital competence courses into continuing education courses. So my course 610, it's now run two times. So we run it once a year. And we just finished it about a month ago with over close to 900 in the course. And not everybody finishes it, but we had over half of them finishing the course and getting the exam. And this was available to all companies in Western Norway, where we live. And we had like 45 from a bank taking the course, and we've had people between 19 and 71 years taking the course. We get feedback saying everybody should have this course, and they keep coming back. And what has happened after we took this course, the seafood industry asked us if we could make a particular course for the seafood industry. So we've we're making that now, and giving the thing that will be different. The same pensum will be used, the datareisen that I've told you about, but it will have examples in the assignments and things for the seafood industry. We've been asked to do it for teachers, so this will also be available in the fall. And we've also been asked to make it available for students at the CHARM University Network, which is the European University Network that UIB is with. So from the one course that we started with 2.5 years ago, we've ended up now with 5 versions. And in fact, both finance and the Naval Academy are asking us to give courses for them. So the Naval Academy would be cadets, I think about 250 of them each semester coming into it. So this course has obviously been useful for some people. And so what happens is we go from the framework of DALI telling us what we need to teach people about to developing the data journey program and then using it in these UIB data literacy courses. And here's an example here. We also use something that we developed in DALI, which is a We Are Data website, which is the first assignment. We use that as the first assignment in the course, even though it was developed for DALI, where people have to visualize some version of data in their life, in their city, in their country. So for instance, up here, the number of rainy days in Oslo and Bergen being compared. You see Bergen's very rainy. And they can hand draw them, or they can, just visualize in some way. And then the second assignment is one of the games that we made in data literacy. So it's about the kinds of data that you develop. Some data is visible, some's invisible, etc. So they play this game that we've developed in data. So these 3 things together play off of each other, which has been very fruitful. Okay, and now we'll move on to teacher inquiry. Celia should we? Yeah, maybe we switch. Yeah, so she has.
Yes, hello. So now you listen to Barbara, and now you learned a little bit about what the data is. And I will tell you about teacher inquiry and how to use data. Teacher inquiry, it's a method, systematic method. And we have a definition also. So generally, teacher inquiry is the systematic, intentional, self-critical, planned investigation into one's own teaching practice. And it aims to contribute to the development of teacher professionalism and school improvement through a focus on teacher-centered, practice-based, evidence-oriented activity. So, if we look at this definition, it's more the school approach to teacher inquiry, while for teachers, teacher inquiry is a systematic, intentional, self-critical, planned investigation of own teaching practice. And there are 7 steps in this method, and it starts with a kickoff. is there something you would like to know about your class, about your students? What are students' learning needs? Or what are your own learning needs? And then there's this second step. And often we have assumptions about something. So you have to state your assumptions, to formulate and explain your first thoughts from the kickoff. And then you formulate a research question, something you want to inquire. Develop this inquiry question and formulate and reformulate. Often you tend to have a very broad question, and then you should sort of try to narrow it. Because teacher inquiry it's not to just do one time the 7th step. It's to sort of work in this way with small, narrow projects. And then it's the method. So you should find a method. How will you find and collect the answers? And often you use tools to collect. For instance, you have assessments, you have maybe digital tools, and they give some kind of data. So it sort of gives you an opportunity to use that data that you already have and use that to follow these 7 steps. And then you should make some changes to try to collect the data from the teaching. And that's based on your research question, how you organize that changing of teaching and assessment. And then the 6th step is to analyze. What's the result of the changed practice? What's the learning outcome? And then a very important step, that's the feedback and sharing with your colleagues what you found. And what we done, so we done this project with many teachers, and everybody works in teams in their school. So of course you can do these 7 steps alone, but what we found is that they go together, they group together, find some common question, and work together. And that's obviously more fun also. And I'd like to show you some projects that teachers actually done. So this is a project, a presentation that a team of teachers done in primary school. And they shared this presentation with me. And they had this presentation with shared it with their findings in their school. And then they had this question: how can interdisciplinary work with coding lead to increased understanding in mathematics? And they had this assumption that we believe coding lead to increased use of mathematical concepts and enhanced understanding. And the inquiry question is therefore, when struggling students do coding, do they also gain increased understanding when we work interdisciplinary? And they have this method. So we listen and observe. We can also test the students in coding. Can I create a board using mathematical and English concepts? And then they did this change. So we started by showing Salaby, that's a mathematic program that I use in Norwegian schools. It's very popular. So can we use this Salaby for coding in schools to the students? And together we have coded through various levels, and we learn concepts through a function of repetitive functions. And then we have an activity center visiting us. And we have connected it to learning rhythm, sequences, and music. So that's the interdisciplinary project that they had. And we have also linked the coding to art and craft, focusing on coordinate systems in mathematics. And we have utilized the language students who are familiar with from gaming in everyday life. So if children use especially English in their language when gaming. And then I collected data. So since our students are too young to use questionnaires, we have chosen to collect data through conversations and observations. During learning conversations, the students have reflected on the use of coding in everyday life. They have independently connected coding to subjects we have not focused on. So these are something that the students have told when they're doing this project. So the students told them that we are double coding when we are gaming. First, we code our brain to perform an operation like pressing a button, and then the button further codes an operation that tells the character in the game what to do. Very clever. So also, we code our brain to form words when we put letters together. And we code ourselves when we move. So the result, we see that students connect knowledge from coding to other subjects and everyday tasks. However, since they are still quite young, we will continue to use coding intentionally in the future to maintain their understanding. And the next TISL project, we wish to continue our research by linking it to both physical education activities and other types of mathematical tasks, especially within the coordinate system and graphs. So that was coding, and we have another project here on writing. And their kickoff in this group was writing by hand versus writing on a computer, with and without audio support. Is the kickoff. And assumptions they had. For some students, there are too many processes to deal with when writing. Spelling, letter formation, formal features, sentence structure, content, and remembering what they have written. And the research question they ended up with, can doing written work on a computer lead to student producing longer text, more text, and with better spelling than when writing by hand? And is there a difference with if they have audio support? And the method, students group will write about a picture in Google Docs in 3 different sessions. 1, writing by hand. 2, writing on computer without audio support. And 3, writing on a computer with audio support. And then they did this in the classrooms using the group texts. We conducted a number of words in different texts and recorded a number of spelling mistakes. We entered the result in a table, and the result was that we see the same trend among students with age-appropriate writing skills. They produce significantly more text when using computers without audio support. And the number of spelling mistakes decreases. When writing with audio support into words, we see few spelling mistakes, but the amount of text produced decreases significantly. And then they shared the result in a presentation with their colleagues. So how to sort of implement this work into your school? So what we have done in the schools together with teachers, so the teachers have a workshop, and they plan in this workshop the kickoff and what they're supposed to inquire. And then they collaborate on this, conduct the plan, and also have guidance throughout this when they have conducted a plan. And then they collaborate again about their findings, and then they share. So this is sort of the implementation of TISL. And what we have done, we found out that using this Padlet is a very good tool to work together in teams, in groups in the school. And I'll just show one of these Padlets. It's in Norwegian though, but this is from a school, just an example. And one of the group, the pink group, they had a kickoff in the first row here. And then they have the assumptions they put in. And doing this, you see, for instance, in method, that's the 4th row here, they even put in a picture of the tool that they're supposed to gather data from and investigate. And there is this white group and the yellow group and the lilac group. So then, using this Padlet, they can see each other's groups, what they have been interested in to investigate and inquire. So they share everything. And then they can support each other in the work. This is the same. We used the Padlet in many schools. This is another school. They done the same, but as you see, I took a picture of this before they finished all the different steps. So it's still empty in the 3 last steps. So of course there are some recommendations if you like to do this. These TISL workshops can be organized as remote sessions with presentations and group work, integrated with breakout rooms, for instance. We've done that. We've been attending schools, but we also helped digitally. And the introduction can start with a theme the school is focusing on at the moment. Maybe they need some knowledge and background to set the stage. That's a recommendation. Before the workshop, it's nice to have a discussion with the principal or rector on ICT. After the workshop, inform about the result of the workshop, so everybody feel an ownership of this. And also the teachers who have conducted project find teacher inquiry very useful and will continue to follow the method in order to use data to improve own practice. But also we have this finding that you should just try to find small questions to investigate, to inquire. You're not supposed to sort of solve the whole world problems. Small, because you're not writing a master thesis again. This is something that you're supposed to be able to do over and over again. And it's your data, it's in your classroom, so it's not maybe applicable to others' classrooms and findings in other classrooms. So let's go through this. So we have the inquiry phase. The teachers work together with a group and use their plan. The teachers will then conduct the project in accordance to the plan. And the collaboration, decide, implement, and make a presentation on the project and finding. And you have the group work. The teachers are divided into groups, and they identify an inquiry question and make a plan for the inquiry processes. And then, of course, the sharing session. That's very important. The group will reflect on findings and present their project to the other groups. And this can be done in different formats or a longer session. And then this is an iterative process. The teacher can start a new project when they have presented the project, being inspired by their community. Often you see that groups see other groups, what they've been doing, and then they like to try to do the same thing. So it ends up with switching the projects in the schools. Yes, what's the time?
Yeah, I think we're okay.
Yeah. I think it's 10
minutes left
for questions.
I already see a few questions and thoughts in the chat. I don't know if anyone would like to take the floor, or we can also just read them.
Yeah.
I think we can read them.
All right.
Well, there were some challenging questions. There's one about asking about whether there shouldn't be a baseline. I think it's referring to the first example you shared, Cecilia, about the coding. So, of course, they implemented this new method, and then with observations, you looked at the impact. So I think Joanna was asking whether we shouldn't first know how their math skills were before. I can imagine that's a difficult thing to implement in a school context, but yeah, maybe you have some thoughts or you thought about it.
But often that's based on the assumptions often, because you already have some data. That's why you start this. So of course, then you already have that data, and then you make a change, and then you can compare if you need to compare. But often we see that some teams like to just make interviews with their students, how they experienced the changes. Because it's not, we tend to think about this as very natural science aspect, that we have these assumptions. It's like this. It's very hypothetic deductive method, but it's not like that. We're not supposed to have a baseline that we're comparing the results with necessarily. You can have that because you have already data, and then you can make some changes, and then you see the difference. You can already have a baseline, but you don't need that.
Yeah. So it's not like a master's project.
No, it's not a master's project.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
And the main problem we find in schools is teachers don't have time. So this is something to help them that they find they can manage to do. They do them in teams, like the math group at the school or something like that, and they go through the process together to help them find out something that they're interested in knowing a little bit more about. But it probably could not be published as an academic paper or something. But that's where the difference goes, because we find in practice they don't. A lot of them have masters already, but they don't have the time. You don't have the time to go through that large of a process. But this gives them some insights that help them.
And it's not a research project.
Yes.
It's an inquiry project.
Yeah. That's a good point to emphasize, and it applies to their context anyway. And they already come in with the assumptions, maybe from their own observations, or even maybe research done in the past.
And we get them to write down the assumptions, because they're really important, because they are going probably into this wanting to show one way or the other, and maybe it makes them reflect a little bit to get it down what they think their assumption is, and then maybe put that to a side and then do something that can help them be more precise. And
the difference is really because we tend to act on assumptions.
Yeah.
So these assumptions, it's something we have. Often it's actually when we see teachers write down the kickoff and then try to find an assumption, it's very hard. Oh, they can't figure out what's their assumptions. But when they start to talk, they often have assumptions because they have already been thinking about this. Yeah, I believe it's like this because of this. And then let's go into and investigate that a little bit more. So it's the assumption step. It's hard, but it's very important just to reflect.
Yeah.
And I see another question that is maybe again referring to a scientific method, maybe a what do you call it? A confirmatory bias. Because I think Claudio, it was Claudio saying, is there a risk of polluting the data while talking about the results with the teachers and steer it towards the desired answers, it says.
But I think that's sort of the difference between research and inquiry. So what's the risk then if you pollute the data? This is not a research project. It's nothing that you're going to prove that it's like this. This is an inquiry project that will sort of make you be able to think a little bit different about your practice and maybe make your practice better. So it's a difference. It's inquiring your practice. It's not research about practice. It's not, so we are always biased anyway, I think, even in natural sciences. We have already the ideas about what we're supposed to find, but it's not polluting data here. That's not a sort of issue. Data is polluted anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked do the teachers share their results with students as well as each other?
They have, yes, some have, and the students have found it very nice, actually. Yes, even in primary schools, they showed, because even in primary schools, and I think that's important that some teachers have focused on this, and that's that when the teachers do this activity with their students, they tell about that we are doing this project and we're going to inquire this and this, instead of why should you sort of do it in the silence? And then you find that the students are with on that project together. You do something together. You inquire together.
Yeah. Someone else asked, which is interesting, should the assumption come first instead of the kickoff question?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
I can't say that there is something that should. It's not like these 7 steps are written in stone that you should do this. This is just a possibility for you to sort of follow the steps. These are the steps that are most common to follow, but you should think yourself. If you find that I guess that some of the kickoff already comes from assumptions.
Yeah. I think it's to narrow down what it is you're going to work on. And if you look at assumptions comes before the research question, and that actually got changed while we were going through developing this, I think, because the question they're going to ask, they couldn't start with that because they didn't like this started out very academic, the way we think about doing research, but it doesn't work. It didn't work with the teachers. It has to, with the requirements on doing formal research. It just doesn't work in a school situation. So we had to change the name of all the steps over the project when we were developing this. So we ended up talking about the kickoff instead of about having.
It's not a research project.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So this went through many iterations to come with the names for the steps and to get them to think about it, because it's usually they often get a new tool in school and they try it out and they're wondering how it actually works, and they start talking with their colleagues. And then when you get them to think about something that they're doing that they have access to collect some data about, then you get them talk about it, and they said, okay, what about this newbie tool? Could we do something around that? And it starts that way more than a sort of more formal question. And when you get down after they've talked about it, think about their assumptions, they're able then to be more formal about, okay, what are we actually going to inquire here? That was from our experience. Yeah. Just looking here.
You see
Is there still time?
Yeah.
For a few questions?
It's up to you.
That's if it's up to me. I'm holding on my questions as well. But I'm checking if there's any from the floor. I remember in the course we had asked if they have questions in advance.
Yeah, there was one question about collecting real-time data. And I can say that as during the last 10 years of looking at learning analytics, it's really hard to collect data. It's not hard to collect data real time. Most tools are collecting data when you use them, but it's really hard to process data real time and give feedback in the classroom as the data is being collected. That is really a challenge. And I think even in the whole field of learning analytics have realized that that's really problematic. Usually the infrastructure's not there. The teachers don't really have time to look at the data during the class. So collecting the data and then looking at it later, but being aware that you're collecting the data and what kind of data do you have access to. And there are lots of teachers that maybe could take, say, log files out of some tools that students are using and analyze them. But even researchers have trouble doing that, getting it in a format they can use it, etc. So most of the teachers aren't looking at that kind of data. They're maybe looking at a pre-test and a post-test, or looking at the content of something someone has made, or these kinds of things that are easier to deal with than sort of real-time data.
Someone is asking about the library day.
Yeah.
Sarah, yeah, if you could tell more about it.
Yeah, so our local library actually has a room where they have different games and they have different activities. So we were invited to come there and have a day for these data literacy games. So maybe you could go and get me a game from there, because we have these physical games, which is for a digital group. I can show you. So we went over there and we set up, and we had I think we had 5 or 6 of our games with us. And the librarians were very supportive, and they've always liked this particular project. Like you see here, we have like actual physical games with you can open, and they have the different game parts and things in there. So we had these with us, and we were set up. I think, if I remember correctly, it was sort of mid-afternoon to early evening, and people came by and could play the different games. And the one game they all love, if you're looking for something, it's called the Game of Phones. This is a very simple card game that you can download. And in fact, the western part of Norway liked this game so much that we have made it into a package that has been I guess it's the municipality. It's bigger than a municipality. They have made this kit, bright screaming pink kit, if you can see on my picture, that contains 2 games. It has this Game of Phones, and we made it into a version for schools, and then the data iceberg game. And they get this package, and they are using it at the beginning of the school year. So for the Game of Phones, they find it's a good way for the new students in high school to get to meet each other, because they're always a bit shy when they start a new school, a new class, and they play the game. And we have a set of materials that go with this one that help the teacher talk with them. So for instance, after you've played this game on your phone and you're looking for different things, you say, okay, did you use a net browser? Did you use an app? Did you use Instagram? Where did you use? What were you using? Make them aware of where they're collecting the data. What data have you left behind? What data have you given to these websites? You know, you're building up what your search thing is on your thing. So we have some materials for the yeah, you can show it. Materials for the teachers to help them go into a dialogue with the students with this game. And I've never cards. Bring it a bit closer. Yeah. So the thing is that we've never had this game of phone games played anywhere with any age group that within 2 minutes they're not laughing and having a great time. So it's really a really nice game that can very easily teach something about data literacy. Yeah. Then you
data
iceberg. Yeah. Yeah. So this was sent to 45 high schools in Norway, and we're requested all the time for it from other school districts, but it's quite a lot of work, and we need to have a dedicated person to working on it, I think, if we're going to do it that way. So otherwise we send them to the website where you can also go and download.
Yeah, print.
Yeah, and if anyone tries the datareisen.no that we mentioned, that would be nice to hear from you. You can find us on Slate and send us a message, because people really like that particular course as well.
I haven't been able to do all of it, but I started looking at it and I really like it. It's very clearly explained.
Yeah, we're about to update it. And that actually came about because we had a course that was with very much academic way of presenting things, and we gave our slides to this company that managed to write it into a more accessible way for everybody. So the conceptual knowledge is still correct, the terminology is correct and everything, but it's just written in a really nice way that people like to read it. And I think that's why it's so popular, is because it's really understandable. And our vice rector read it. She took the course. She did the course, and she's a computer scientist. And she wrote me and said, "Oh, I learned lots of things I didn't know about." Yeah, but we will update it now during the next half year. But the course will still be available as is. But we update the text and go through it again. And it became in English. It was done originally in Norwegian, and Equinor, which is the big oil company conglomerate here in Norway that has offices around the world, they wanted to use it for all their employees, so they paid for the translation to English. So it was not written in English to begin with. So that's been quite nice too.
And what I really like about the DALI toolkit, when I was going through it, I realized that some of the games are adaptations of classical board games as well, like the Databi, and that's really nice. And we tried the Game of Thrones also. It also works well as an icebreaker.
Yeah, and the thing is with that's part of the methodology so we were Coventry, Sebastian Arnab, he's a game researcher, and he has this methodology of how you do start with games that you know, because you have the game mechanics there and everything that helps. It's really quite complicated, actually, to develop a game, as we can say. It was about 1.5 years of work almost each game, and having it tested, and we tested at different phases, and then in the end, and that project was a lot of work, have to admit, to get everything into the right formats. For even just, we have a company in Spain that printed the games for us because we needed the physical games, but they also did the print and play for us. So yeah, it was a lot of work, but it's probably one of my most favorite projects ever. And we've gotten a lot out of it. So we're very happy with that project.
The print and play works definitely well, because I tried it with the Delicious Week, and if you really print a paper, well, two-sided from the printer, you can just cut it and you get the cards with the double sides. Yeah,
and that's because we had these professional people do the final version for us, so everything was very strict on exactly how things had to be placed on the pages and everything. So it was worth it in the end.
I don't see new questions, but I have a question if you still have a moment. Because earlier you mentioned the fantastic data for teachers and DG 600 course. So I was wondering, how did you adapt the content to teachers in that case?
Basically, we don't change data race, and that stays the same. And of the assignments that they have in the course, there's 6 quizzes and 5 assignments that they do over the 6 weeks, and it's a fully digital course. And the course where they have to read something and write some summaries and stuff, we pick courses that are relevant for teachers, and we're actually updating a couple of the quizzes as well to make them relevant. So that's the only thing we're changing, not too much. But I've told them that, really the course is relevant for anybody, but they want their own, so we will do that. And the other thing is the teachers like the municipality we're working in, they like to have one physical day, even though it's an online course, fully digital. And so we make it in that particular for the teachers only, that they can come in. And then we played games, actually. And that pink work kit came out of the first time we ran the course, because they got really excited and they wanted these games, and they went to the municipality and they ended up paying for us to put together that package. So that came out of having the physical day, that we had the teachers playing the games. Yeah.
All right. We could maybe have some closing words, maybe to answer the question, where does a teacher start if they don't have any much time, if they don't have much knowledge about data literacy?
Yeah.
What do they do for, what's a simple thing to do to start with inquiry or data literacy?
I think they should take .race.no, take that course. It will give you lots of insights into what data is, in fact, on a low level. Also give you ideas about, your rights about data, being critical thinking around data. And then for inquiry, how do you think they should start?
Well, I think that, of course, they could start just by looking at what kind of data do they have and what do they wonder about in the classroom. What would I like to learn more about? But of course, teacher inquiry, I would also try to ask if it's possible to do this for a planning day or something like that, actually.
Yeah.
That's most schools have planning days and have started the teacher inquiry process and implementing and having the workshop in such a day.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
This course has an inquiry plan template, like it's the assignment for the MOOC, and the template is inspired by the TISL framework, the HEART model as well. So
yeah.
I hope that this will encourage, well, if there are participants among us already thinking about it, it will encourage them further to look it up.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for your time, and
Yep.
yeah, I wish everyone a good day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for nice questions.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the insights.